Good evening, everyone, and we're going to call to order the April 7th, 2015 City Council meeting. And we are honored tonight for our Pledge of Allegiance is going to be led by Gary Lewis and Ron Dubois, who will also be talking in a few minutes about Stillwater becoming a Purple Heart City.
Sure.
Mr. Lewis, Mr. Dubois.
All right, please stand. Raise the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Mr. Lewis, Mr. Dubois, if you want to grab a seat right there in the front row just for a moment. Have a seat on the front row just for a moment. Okay, we are going to have a couple proclamations, but with our agendas this evening, I just want to kind of explain the process because we have two different executive sessions and two different meetings. And so we'll be having our city council meeting until we get to executive session, and we'll recess. Then we'll call to order our utility authority meeting and go through it until we get to executive session, then recess. Then have our full economic development authority meeting, and then back to city council for executive session, out, and then SUA in executive session and out. So just kind of be bouncing back and forth, but we'll let you follow along on the program and keep you up to date. And so with that, we do have a couple proclamations. If you guys will join me at the podium. We are honored to have Gary Lewis and Ron Dubois here with us, both members of the Purple Heart organization. And if you'll remember, a couple weeks ago, we had Mr. Lewis came and talked to us about possibly naming Stillwater a Purple Heart City. And so we have done those things, and tonight we have a proclamation where we'll be stating that Stillwater is a Purple Heart City. Whereas the citizens of Stillwater have great admiration and gratitude for the men and women who have selflessly served their country and this community in the armed forces. And whereas the Purple Heart is the oldest military decoration in present use and was initially created as the badge of military merit by General George Washington in 1782. And whereas the Purple Heart was the first American Service Award or decoration made available to the common soldier and is specifically awarded to members of the United States Armed Forces who have been wounded or paid the ultimate sacrifice in combat. And whereas the City of Stillwater appreciates the sacrifices our Purple Heart recipients made in defending our freedom and acknowledges those men and women for their courage by showing our support and honor. Now therefore, I, John Bartley, Mayor of the City of Stillwater, do hereby proclaim the City of Stillwater as a Purple Heart City. Yes, sir.
This will be our second Purple Heart City out of the next 5, I think, that I've counted that is going to proclaim themselves as Purple Heart cities. I'm frankly running out of words getting up in front of all these city councils, but I'm getting better at it, though. I'm getting better at it. This time I have a good friend with me, and a brother too, Ron Dubois, and I don't know whether anybody knows that this is a World War II vet, a D-Day survivor, a POW, a Purple Heart recipient, and also the French Legion of Merit recipient, which is very Anything I left out right?
No, I think you've done great, Gary. I would like to say that Chapter 820 has been a real presence in my life, because when I got out of the Army, I forgot about World War II. I went into art, and I spent most of my life here at OSU in the art department. The only reason I'm speaking to you tonight is because I was classified as an Army artist. I got shot in France, and they took me back to England, and I recuperated, and I got sent back to the front lines. Well, I thought I was a goner. And what is it? I use the word synchronicity. There was a letter from regimental headquarters that they needed they needed an artist. And that took me out of further combat. I would have been dead because I was able to see the turnover in the front lines of my company and my platoon, and it was drastic, triple turnover. So I wouldn't be here today, and some of you probably wish I weren't. But I do appreciate that word synchronicity, because it means a chance coming together of things that affect your entire life. Purple Heart is a real presence, and I think it's taught me the importance of World War II in a way that I never understood before. We could have lost. If it hadn't been for the Navy disobeying orders and taking out those bunkers, the Germans could well have won. We made every mistake that could be made. So I think many Americans understand that, actually. I was probably one of the last, but that's the way it goes. And I appreciate and thank you, Stillwater, for agreeing to be a Purple Heart City.
Didn't see Glenn Redding here. Or Valerie, are you here for? Oh. Come on up, Valerie.
How are you? Wonderful. Good. Thanks.
Our second proclamation this evening is in connection with fair housing. April 16th, 2015 marks the 47th anniversary of the passage of the U.S. Fair Housing Law, Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, as amended, which enunciates a national policy of fair housing without regard to race, color, creed, national origin, sex, familial status, and handicap, and encourages fair housing opportunities for all citizens. And whereas the City of Stillwater is committed to support the Fair Housing Act, or the Fair Housing Law, Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, by continuing to address discrimination in our community, to support programs that will educate the public about the right to equal housing opportunities, and to help assure every citizen of their right to fair housing. Now, therefore, I, John Bartley, Mayor of the City of Stillwater, do hereby declare April 2015 as Fair Housing Month in Stillwater, and urge all citizens to support fair housing throughout the year.
Thank you, Mayor Bartley. I just wanted to reiterate how important this declaration is and how our city takes this very seriously. This proclamation serves each year to remind us of just how important fair housing is to our citizens. Thank you.
Okay. That's going to take us down to the consent docket. And Mr. Dorman, I did notice there's nothing on the consent docket about it being opening day for baseball. Was that an oversight?
That was an oversight.
Okay.
I apologize, sir.
We'll solve that. Okay. On the consent docket, I understand item C from the consent docket needs to be stricken. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So items A through G, except item C. Does anyone wish to remove any other item from the consent docket?
Motion to approve the consent docket minus item C.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket, less item C. Okay, we did not have any requests to speak for items not on public agenda, but we're on the, or not for public hearing, but we're on the agenda. And so we're going to go down to public hearings. The first item for public hearing is public comment regarding an application for certificate of public necessity. Do we have good notice on this item?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And
The applicant has submitted all of the required documents and certifications to our city clerk's office, and they've been reviewed by staff. Everything is in compliance. They have met full compliance with the ordinance for application for public conveyance certification.
Okay. All right, well, we will open up the public hearing, and there are no requests to speak on this item, so we will close the public hearing. Mr. Galloway, is there a recommendation from staff?
Recommendation is to approve the application.
Okay, we have a recommendation from staff to approve this application.
So move. Second.
We have a motion and a second. And that's approved 4-1 with Councilor Nahara voting no. That is going to take us down to our second public hearing, a map amendment by Gary and Mickey Rogers. Do we have good notice on this, Mr. Dorman?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Dennison?
Good evening. I am actually going to turn the reins over this evening to our planning manager, Aaron Baggerly. Aaron has been with the city since the middle of January, overseeing the planning and the grants function for the city of Stillwater, and he will be making some appearances before y'all on more of the planning-related items that are brought before the council after the planning commission. So if Aaron will come on up, and y'all can give me your evaluation after the meeting.
Thank you, Paula. Aaron Bagley, Development Services, here to map amendment for Gary and Mickey Rogers, 700 and 800 East Northgate Drive. The applicant has proposed to rezone from CS, commercial shopping, to RSS, residential small lot. The applicant property is the shaded area here with stripes. This is a 700 block here, and the 800 parcel is right here. This is on Northgate Drive, which is approximately 1,000 feet north of Richmond Road and at Perkins Road. It is surrounded by RSS and the Tower Park subdivision, which is the yellow to the north. Light industrial to the south. The former Kicker production facility is this parcel right here. And to the west, we have CG, commercial general, and some light industry as well. The findings: the property is platted in the North Tower Park 5th section of the subdivision. It would be an extension of the Tower Park subdivision. And RSS zoning, which is what the applicant has applied for, is compatible with the C3 comprehensive plan. And are there any questions at this point?
Any questions, staff?
Just one. Back to the map. The yellow area, what is the zoning for that? Did you say?
RSS, residential small lot.
So we're going to the same.
Yes.
So,
Access from Perkins Road?
Yes. Northgate Drive is basically this right here. Comes down through here. The red area just outside of the black line here is Northgate Drive.
What would you describe as the main access to get to that subdivision? Is it going to be that Perkins Road, or is it going to be through that other neighborhood?
Perkins Road to Northgate Drive. Currently, the road extends here out of Tower Park to Northgate Drive.
Okay.
I would say Perkins to Northgate would be the main access route for most individuals.
Thank you.
and so this is compatible, RSS with industrial light? That's,
Not particularly. I mean, RSS is one end of the zoning spectrum, and light industrial is near the other end. It's not a close compatibility, but it's pretty far apart. But it is compatible with the adjacent to the north.
correct. Okay.
Would the remaining commercial shopping that is not in the hatched area, would that remain commercial shopping?
This area down here to the south, I believe, would remain commercial shopping. This here, it's just because it's a right-of-way is why it is zoned that. It would,
Okay.
would likely go away as well.
Okay. Any other questions for staff right now? Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to open up our public hearing, and we do have one request to speak. Ms. Harris.
Good evening, Kelly Harris with Keystone Engineering located at 923 South Lowry. I'm here representing the owners tonight. I'm going to go back to that map. I think I can answer some of the questions that you were asking. The owners actually developed the area to the north of there, the area that you see in yellow currently. They thought back then when they platted that there might be some interest for a commercial area in this area that we're asking to be rezoned. They haven't seen that interest, but they are running out of lots in that residential area, so they're just wanting to convert those over to the residential zoning and just continue what they have going in there to the north. I believe that this area here has been purchased by the school district, and they have come to an agreement with them to purchase some additional land here to act as right-of-way to access these lots that we will be creating. So that would take care of mostly that remaining commercial district. Any other questions?
Thank you. Okay, we did not have anyone else with a request to speak, so we will close our public hearing and ask staff to come back up with the Planning Commission recommendation.
Planning Commission approved this 4-0.
Thank you. All right, so we have questions for staff? Okay. Makes sense to me. Any questions or conversation anyone has on this?
No, no.
Okay, is there a motion on Planning Commission's recommendation?
I make a motion to accept Planning Commission's recommendation.
Second. Motion and a second to accept Planning Commission recommendation. And that is approved 5-0. That's going to take us down to general orders, the update on 1 cent transportation sales tax. Dr. Peak.
Thank you and good evening. Jason Peak, Transportation Director, City of Stillwater, and we're going to talk about the half-cent transportation sales tax. And get that up for you. Most of you know the original half-cent transportation sales tax was approved by voters in 2001. That included a list of 15 projects. It was reauthorized for an additional 10 years in 2006 with the added caveat that we, through council approval, could add additional transportation projects to that. We had to give prioritization to those original 15 projects. As listed in your report, of those 15 projects, all of those are complete with the exception of Western Road at Hall of Fame, which is currently under design and on track to be under construction by December of this year. So it's our goal to basically have all those projects completed before the sales tax program expires. And talking about the capital funding, the transportation sales tax does expire on August 30th of 2016, so that would be the end of the half-cent sales tax. And since inception in 2001, that program has generated about $42 million in revenue as of December of 2014. But looking at the last 6 years, what I wanted to talk to you about tonight was you can see the lion's share, which is the chart, the blue bars going up, has been the half-cent transportation sales tax. That's generated about $21 million over the last 6 years. The general fund, which is through an annual appropriation, has generated $11.5 million over the last 6 years, with a little over $8 million of that coming in the last 2 years, and that's primarily our pavement management program. And then the other capital funding source that we have which is the small green bar through there is called the transportation development fee. And that's as we have development projects come into town, they pay a development fee, and that goes to transportation related projects. And as you can see, over the last 6 years, that's generated a small amount, totals about $640,000. And as we look at these expenditures and kind of categorize what we've been spending them on, I can give you 3 different program titles. Asset management, which is the core of our transportation program. This is what we call our pavement management program, where we're just fixing the streets, or we're fixing the bridges, fixing the existing traffic signal systems. This has been the core. This is an image of Washington Avenue. We had a pavement rehab job that was funded through the half-cent program in 2010. We've done things called safety and mobility. These could be intersection improvements to provide signals and turn lanes along with pedestrian or bike facilities. And this one was Lakeview Avenue and Husband Street up by Boomer Lake. Was a project done prior to 2010. And then the last one is what we call corridor improvements. Now, these are more significant projects. We're showing a picture of University Avenue, but what I want you to understand is that corridor improvements include asset management. We're typically replacing existing failed pavements. We're also increasing safety and mobility by providing ped facilities, bike facilities, signals, what have you. And so those are the 3 categories of programs that we have used half-cent and general fund. And if we drill down to the half-cent transportation sales program, since 2001, about 55% of that funding has gone to green, which is basically corridor improvements, while 41% has gone to asset management type activities. This includes bridge maintenance, replacement, the pavement rehab jobs that we've done. And then about a little over 3.5% has gone to safety and mobility, intersection type projects. So as I said before, the half-cent sales tax will expire in 2016. And so included with your report was basically a 15-year draft transportation plan that we put together at the department level, saying, as your transportation professionals, what types of projects and activities do we need to be addressing over the next 15 years for this community? And you'll see a little bit different distribution. But looking out over that 15-year picture, we're forecasting an average need of $9.4 million of spending on corridor improvements, which would be the green bar up there, 39%, 48% being our core services, our asset management, and 13% being allocated to safety and mobility. We feel that this is what's needed to have a comprehensive transportation program. If that's not possible, and we will only spend funds that we have available, the core services, that 48%, and that's our pavement management, that's our bridge management, our traffic signal management, system replacement program. That's what those cores are. So we're here before you tonight to just kind of give you that overview on the half-cent update and seek recommendation to start a renewal of the half-cent transportation sales tax. And with that, I would open it up to any questions that you may have.
Anybody have any questions for Dr. Peak?
Could you explain what mobility is when you say safety and mobility?
So mobility includes a number of different things. We're talking about signal systems and progression so that we have coordinated corridor plans for moving vehicular traffic. We're talking about sidewalk and pedestrian connections. We have to comply with the American for Disabilities Act and have an ADA plan for bringing our current sidewalk ramps into compliance with ADA standards. We're talking about bicycle facilities. A lot of people don't know, but still 7% of our commuting traffic in 2010 was by pedestrians, 3% was by bicycling, and another 3% uses the OSU transit system for commuting to work. That may not sound like a large percentage, but 3%, for example, of bike users is really significant. A city like Tulsa or Oklahoma City, you're talking less than 0.5% of their commuting public is doing it by bike. And if you talk about progressive bike communities like Portland, Oregon, or Minneapolis, St. Paul, 6%. So, I mean, we're at half those percentage. We have high demand for those facilities. The safety part of it is looking at where we may have accidents, fatalities, and needing projects basically to make our roads safer for all users.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Dr. Peak, how does Complete Streets fit into this
Complete
plan?
Streets fits into all the categories. We've got a draft policy that we'll be bringing to you here, we hope, early May. And it's basically a design approach. It's how do we design our transportation system? So you can take that Complete Streets approach to asset management. When we go in and we're resurfacing a road, let's say a 4-lane road, do you look at doing a road diet and converting that road to 3 lanes with a 2-way center turn lane that may address a safety need and then provide room for bicycle facilities? When we get into corridor improvements and complete reconstruction, just making sure we're designing those streets so they work for all users of all age and all ability.
So it's more of a philosophical overlay.
Right, it's a design approach that drives how we create the projects that would be funded through the transportation program.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any comments for Dr. Peak? There's no doubt that, would you flip back to the chart that shows the last 6 years of funding, the breakdown? I am extremely proud of the last 2 years with the red bar starting to hold its own, for lack of a better word, meaning that the general fund is contributing to streets and functionally doubling the amount of money we've been putting into streets the last several years. Is that a fair statement from looking at that graph?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The staff recommends council direct city manager being processed for public referendum on renewal of half-cent transportation sales tax. What do you mean by that?
So we're looking for you basically to tell us to go forward. I mean, this would be a voter referendum, ballot initiative to either reauthorize the current half-cent sales tax for a certain period of time. We need to work out the details whether we do, like in 2001, have a specific list of projects. That's why we drafted the 15-year plan to put in there as a starting point for that discussion. Or do we take a programmatic focus saying the half-cent will go to asset management, safety, mobility, corridor improvements, these type? We need to spend a little bit of time doing that. We also need to define a date when that resolution could be presented. From a budgeting cycle, March of 2016 would be the last realistic date for us to have that referendum, have a decision, so we know how to plan appropriately for the next budget cycle. But there are definitely several other election dates between now and that March period that we could look at. So we're basically asking for your approval to start this process, kind of define those parameters, and get it back on the ballot.
Got it. So this is not, you're not asking us for the final version of the plan. You're asking us to say, start.
Yes.
Got it.
I won't be able to get my licks in next year. I'll be off the council by then, but I would certainly support doing this again and put it before the voters. And I think we would be wise to put another 10-year clause in there so that we give the voters the opportunity to renew it again 10 years down the road.
Absolutely.
If they like what we're doing, they like what they see, they'll support it.
Yes.
Makes sense. Any questions, comments for Dr. Peak? Okay, so do you need to give the official recommendation? Or I guess you said it earlier.
We request recommendation from City Council to renew the half-cent sales tax. Dan may have a better way to say it than I do.
Well, I'll make the motion to approve with caveat of a 10-year cycle again, and let's get on with it. The program's been successful. Y'all have done a great job.
Second.
All right, I think there'd be several seconds if we could do it. So, all right, we have a motion and a second to approve staff's recommendation to begin the process. And That's approved 5-0. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I had some questions about what that means from council members and process. And of course, I think it stands out in my mind, we recently had a significant public survey of a lot of issues, and renewing the half-penny transportation tax was really high on the public's wish list, so to speak, or support list. But the question was brought up today, what about public involvement? I think that with this motion, what it would involve, I think Mr. Dorman and myself would take a look at the eligible election dates, because it will require a vote at some point. We would help develop a draft language for this, but then I think the most important thing is to schedule a series of public information sessions with the public and begin to inform the public and remind those who do know and inform those who don't how this half penny is restricted, what kinds of projects will be used for, basically what Dr. Peak was talking about. And I think the objective would be to try to find an election before the end of this calendar year, in that it does expire next year, and I think for Dr. Peak, we need to have it before we start next year's budget process, because I think whether we have the tax approved for renewal or not will impact how we look at the limited resources in the regular budget. So that's just to give you an idea. I don't have a date yet, but I would highly recommend we try to get it on the ballot with the public this calendar year.
Thank you. It's going to take us down to ordinances, and on first reading, we have ordinance 3296. Mr. Dorman?
An ordinance amending the Stillwater City Code, Chapter 16, Crimes, Miscellaneous Offenses and Provisions, Article 3, Offenses Involving Property, by repealing in its entirety Section 16-49, Trespass upon Land Forbidden, and creating new Section 16-49 Definitions, 16-49.1 Trespass Forbidden, Section 16-49.2 Enforcement, Section 16-49.3 Defenses to Trespassing, and Section 16-49.4 Penalties for Trespassing.
I'm the Smart Aleck attorney up here, and I read through, it looked like we just totally crossed out the old section and are putting in a new. What's prompting this?
We're updating it. There were some issues about camping and things like that on city property, and we didn't really have a provision that covered that. And when we went in and looked at the old ordinance, it had language in there like willful and malicious and things that just quite frankly do not exist in the state statute. So we decided to just go ahead and clean up the whole thing while we were at it. So we brought you back a nice new ordinance that will cover the issue that originally prompted this change.
Okay. All right, we have ordinance 3296 on first reading. Are there any other questions, or is there a motion on this?
Motion. Approve. Second.
Motion second. Accept ordinance 3296 on first reading. That is approved. Okay, take us down to ordinance 3297, also on first reading.
An ordinance amending the Stillwater City Code, Chapter 29, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Article 1 in general, by amending Section 29-16, Impoundment of Vehicles. Well, this one, Mr. McGrath wrote most of these. I thought he was out in the audience, but I'll handle it. This one deals with making some amendments that would essentially allow the city to impound vehicles that have been parked in areas where we've gone and posted no parking, so for purposes of an event or something along those lines, like removing vehicles from downtown areas and so forth. And he's laughing at me as he stands in the door. But that's essentially the impetus behind this. Norman's sitting there too. Is there anything else that's behind the impoundment ordinance?
It can also be used in the event of an emergency.
Oh, yes, that's the other part.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second on ordinance 3297, first reading. That's approved 5-0. Down to ordinance 3298, also on first reading, and up front, I want to say thank you. Go ahead.
Well, I like that. An ordinance amending the Stillwater City Code by amending Chapter 43, Vehicles for Hire, Section 43-1, Definitions, and Section 43-3, Insurance Required, and by repealing in its entirety Sections 43-4 to 43-125. And this basically eliminates what you just did on public hearing tonight, in that it will no longer require the application for a certificate of necessity in order to operate a taxi cab operation within the city limits. What this does is essentially the same thing that we did with food trucks, which is to require the operators, once they become licensed by the Corporation Commission, to present their license to the city clerk and register with the city so that we know who is operating here. And then it provides for an annual registration process so that we keep the information current. But other than registering, that's all that it will be required to operate a taxi cab service here.
And it's all handled administratively. And
Yes, sir. In
Yes.
fact, the city clerk handles everything.
I like it.
And all the rules, all the insurance, all that is all state level.
Yes, that's
They-
correct.
That they have to do anyway.
They have to meet the state requirements anyway, so rather than to duplicate what the state's done, we've simply removed all of that and just require the registration.
That was part of the problem. It was an old ordinance, and in today's world, we were duplicating the state requirements at additional cost to the applicants, and we couldn't find any justification for causing them to do that twice. If they're doing it with the state, they are safe and certified, and that's the main point.
I'm with you. All right. Any other questions on ordinance 3298?
No, move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second on ordinance 3298, first reading. That is approved 5-0. And on second reading, we have ordinance 3295.
An ordinance relating to public health and safety revising the 911 emergency number ordinance, Section 5, emergency telephone service and fee, thereby maintaining the current 5% user fee established and declaring an emergency. We'll need 2 votes on this ordinance.
2 motions on it. Okay. Is there a motion on ordinance 3295?
Yes. Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second on ordinance 3295. It's approved 5-0. And is there a motion on the emergency clause?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second on the emergency clause. That's approved 5-0 also. Thank you. Okay, taking us down to miscellaneous items. Mr. Dorman, do you have anything?
One item on the city council agenda, sir. Request an executive session pursuant to 25 OS subsection 307B4 for the purpose of confidential communication regarding a pending workers' compensation claim filed by Rick Hoff. It's my opinion that public disclosure of this matter will seriously impair the ability of the city council to process this claim and/or conduct an investigation and/or to prosecute or defend any resulting litigation or proceeding in the public interest.
All right, anything else?
That's all, sir.
Thank you.
Nothing further on the city agenda?
Okay. Counselors, do you have anything?
No, thank you.
Okay, I've got a handful. Our weekly radio schedule I talk about tomorrow, 8:15 on KSPI 780. I will be on there, and then I also have radio Wednesday at 7 o'clock on AAA 105.1. I want to say thank you, really, to the environmental programs services for the city. I tell you what, that's been a busy group lately, and they're going to be busy throughout the month. Last Saturday, so 2 days ago, had the trash off, and I didn't get the numbers, but if you drove around Saturday morning, you saw a lot of people with a lot of blue bags that were picking up trash and helping the community out in that manner. And so I want to thank everyone that came out to help with trash off and environmental programming for putting that together. And be paying attention. We'll be doing that again.
It was great fun. We picked up 36 trash bags on the bike trail behind Oak Creek.
Wow.
36 bags. And
Ouch.
I won't tell you what it was.
Yeah. Well, thank you specifically, and thank you to everyone that did participate. On that same note, Saturday, April 18th, there'll be a specific Boomer Creek cleanup. So if you want to participate in that, 9:30, meet at the Senior Center, so down on 12th Street, and have the equipment go out and clean up Boomer Creek really as it goes through Couch Park. And then on the 25th, so the next Saturday, will be the household hazardous waste cleanup. So we can take household hazardous waste to the Convenience Collection Center. Jump on the website, stillwater.org, all the specifics for those events, plus a all the other stuff that we've got going on, but I really wanted to highlight those and thank the people in the community that are participating and the city staff that is putting those programs together. And so, last item for our miscellaneous items, then we'll move forward. Tonight is my last full meeting, and so I want to say thank you to all the citizens and people of Stillwater. It's been a good ride most days, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. And I do hope that while we may not always have agreed on everything, I think we could all agree that our community is special, and we all keep working to make it even more special. And as long as we keep our eye on that prize, even in disagreement, we're going to get to right decisions. So I want to thank the citizens. I specifically want to thank my fellow counselors, this group, the groups that I've served with for the last 5 years. Very special time, very special people. I'm very proud of everyone that I've served with. I think we've made a good difference in Stillwater. I really do. And I also want to thank city staff. There's no way I could name everyone. Probably the number one thing I want to thank city staff for is the fact that we stay at the 10,000 foot level. We kind of decide, is that the right place to spend money? Is that the right big picture policy? But it's your all's expertise and it's your all's experience, and it's you guys with boots on the ground that actually implement and make those things come to fruition and make our community wonderful. So with that, thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. So,
Maybe his last full meeting, but he is expected to chair the special meeting for budget session Thursday evening, which I forgot to mention. We're going to have a budget work session right here in this room, 5:30 Thursday. And also the next regular meeting, he has to be there to call that meeting to order, but prior to handing over the gavel to new mayor. But and watch the paper and some other sources. We're going to have some information out. We will have a reception prior to that meeting that evening where everyone can come and have an opportunity to say thank you to our mayor and welcome to our new incoming mayor, who will be selected tomorrow. So that's an upcoming event, but you're not finished.
I'm not finished. This is just the last time I got the mic in that venue.
Thank you.
And then my last announcement is tomorrow is Election Day here in Stillwater. Please, you have approximately 25 hours to get educated and to go vote. So go to your local and regular polling place, take your picture ID and your voter card, and go vote. Okay. Anything for upcoming meetings?
No.
Okay. We do have appointments tonight. Stillwater Public Housing Authority. I'll pull up my notes. Okay, we have one Housing Authority board member whose term has expired as eligible for reappointment. I've gone through my normal process. This person has been doing a good job and does want to be reappointed, and so I would nominate Sue Bonner for reappointment to Housing Authority.
Second.
We have a nomination and a second for Sue Bonner. And that is approved 5-0. Okay, next item on City Council would be the executive session, but we're going to recess City Council. We're going to call to order the Stillwater Utility Authority's meeting for April 6, 2015. There are 3 items on the consent docket for SUA. Does anyone wish to remove anything from the consent docket for SUA?
No.
No, sir.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve the consent docket.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the SUA consent docket. As approved, 5-0. No request to speak for items not on the agenda, or not for public hearing. That'll take us down to general orders, and we do have item A under general orders.
Should you announce the staff's request to withdraw a couple of items?
We certainly can now.
I just wanted to point out the staff has, we had some additional questions we think need to be addressed and answered on item 5B and subsequently on item 6A. And staff has placed those on the agenda. We've withdrawn them tonight. We'd like to have some more time to research a few questions that council trustees have raised and make sure the public and the council has all that information. So we will be scheduling that at a later date.
Thank you. And before we call item A, we're gonna, several people are leaving, and so we're gonna let them leave so we can.
Too big.
Next on our agenda, under general orders, item A, declaration of immediate emergency contract award. Mr. Millis.
Good evening, trustees. Bill Millis, Water Utilities Director. Here this evening to tell you about an occurrence at the wastewater treatment plant and our response to it. And the plant is on Brush Creek Road at about 27th Avenue, and we had an ongoing construction project for the bar screen replacement at the headworks of the wastewater plant. During that construction, the contractor discovered that the pipe, which you can see there in the picture, was extensively deteriorated and in imminent danger of collapse. You can see there, there's exposed rebar, there's joint material which has come out. There at the top of the screen, you can't see it very well, but there's a hole in the pipe, in the top of the pipe, and that's a piece of the top of the pipe there has fallen through to the bottom. So we've got portions collapsed and a void above the pipe where dirt has fallen in, and honestly in imminent danger of more catastrophic collapse. The pipe could collapse completely, block flow. Right now during this photograph they had the flow blocked so they could see what was going on in there. But if we block flow, then we could have backups and sewage bypasses to the creek, potentially backing up into homes and businesses. So since as we discovered this situation, we made the area safe, cordoned it off to stop all vehicular traffic over the area. I will, here at this map, you can see where at the wastewater plant it's happening. The building, if you can see the mouse, that's the headworks, and that's where the construction project is going on. The red dashed line is the portion of pipeline that we've discovered is deteriorated. So what we did was we stopped the temporarily suspended work that the contractor's doing that could impact this line, and we cordoned off the area so no vehicles would be driving over it. We set up temporary standby pumping, so in the event that there is a collapse, we can pump around while we're addressing it and removing the debris. And we have priced standby pumping equipment for purchase because we figured out that for the duration that we need to have this temporary pumping on standby, it'd be cheaper to purchase it than it is to rent it. And then we would have it for future use if necessary. We've also solicited bids to replace the line. It's about 100 feet of 42-inch sewer line, and we've solicited bids from numerous contractors. But to proceed from where we are at this point, we need a couple things. One, that's to declare an emergency, which will allow us to forego the routine competitive bidding process, because that would add several months in design time to hire an engineer, and in opening bids for 3 weeks, and getting contracts in place and things like that. So based on the plan we're bringing you tonight, we could have construction complete by July or sometime during July, and we would have the temporary bypass pumping in place until that time. The cost of this project, in round numbers, would be $50,000 to Crossland Heavy Construction. They were the contractor working on the project, and they helped us with our immediate response. They provided the initial bypass pumping equipment, so we have rental fees to them and labor and equipment. The next piece is again approximately $50,000 to purchase bypass pumping equipment to have on standby to operate it and to maintain it if we need to. And again, that equipment we would then keep, a pump and some 8-inch hose. And then the next piece is $171,000, which includes the quote. I think we received 6 quotes, and the best lowest quote was from Crossland for $148,000 approximately, plus contingency. That makes $171,000. We have sufficient funds in the SUA Wastewater Capital Fund, and if approved, then staff will administratively appropriate that money. So that's all I have, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. If not, I can, the recommendation's a little long, so I'll read it to you if that helps.
Anybody have questions for Mr. Millis?
Strongly recommend approval of this.
I'd say there's no doubt that this needs to be done. I just want to clarify one thing.
Sure.
You used the phrase competitively bid, but in a nutshell, we went out and got the best available quote. It just didn't follow all the procedural timeframes under the normal bidding act.
Correct. There are documentation and timing requirements for competitive bidding, including advertising in the newspapers for 21 days. But what we did was obtain competitive quotes by distributing to, I don't remember how many, but basically broadcasting it, saying, anyone that can do this work, you've got 10 days, give us a quote. And we got 6 quotes. I think one of them was pretty much higher than the others, but the others were clustered enough to know that we're in the reasonable range. And the low top 2 or 3 were quite close. So we have competitive pricing. We have a contractor that's already there and mobilized. They've proven willing to help us out because they responded, they saw the need and helped us respond. They didn't say, wait a minute, where's your checkbook? They just helped us out.
Any other questions for Mr. Millis?
I think Bill's run past the rabbit. I motion to approve.
Second.
A motion a second to accept staff's recommendation. That is approved 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to note, you may notice a new name on the report, Candy Staring. Ms. Staring is one of the newer additions to Mr. Millis' staff, the engineering staff. That's her in the audience, and she prepared this report. You'll probably see her name on future reports, and welcome aboard. We're glad to have you on board.
Thank you.
Who did you work with before? Yeah, that's what I thought. Guernsey was fussing at me for taking a good employee. I said, it wasn't me. It was those guys. Good.
I've seen her work before.
Okay. Next item is, Mr. Dorman, we'd have a request for executive session.
The purpose of confidential communication regarding purchase or appraisal of real property pursuant to 25 OS subsection 307B3.
Okay. Like we talked about at the beginning, we're going to now recess Utility Authority. And I'm going to call to order the Stillwater Economic Development Authority meeting for April 6, 2015. On the consent docket, we have item A, the approval of minutes.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and second on the consent docket.
Oh, sorry.
And that is approved 5-0.
That's ready for the next thing.
And that's going to take us down to general orders. Item A, Mr. Galloway's, or Mr. McClenny.
Yeah, this is Mr. McClenny going to present this, if you would, please, Mr. McClenny.
John McClenny, Services Director. I guess a couple of months ago, back when it was still cold and nobody was thinking about landscaping, Mr. Galloway came to the council with some ideas for improving the appearance of the community for visitors and also for the residents. And one of those was to do some landscaping in some fairly high visibility areas, some upgraded landscaping. Since that time, we put out a bid request that includes design, installation, and maintenance for 1 year of high visibility areas in Stillwater, and that includes 6th and Lowry Traffic Island, the 6th and Washington Traffic Island, Wittenberg Park's entrance along Highway 177, the 6th and Perkins Monument, and Washington and Boomer Traffic Islands, near where Washington veers off and goes towards OSU. We got one bid from Cross Timbers Landscape. They're a local company. They have been involved in the downtown landscaping for several years. So if you like what you see down there, that's what we're going to get if we award this bid. The bid was for $54,071. That's all of the areas. That includes 1 year of maintenance. So the city won't have to worry about keeping these up. The maintenance includes, as a requirement in the bid request, that 90% of the plant materials be alive at all times and thriving so that it'll look good all the time. We have sufficient funding in the Convention and Tourism Fund to fund this project, and there's a budget amendment attached to this report that we're also seeking approval of, and staff recommends that the council award this bid to Cross Timbers Landscape and approve the budget amendment. Now, ordinarily, a project like this, a bid award would have been on consent docket, but want to show you what you're going to get because they've done some really creative things, and so we've got a little bit of some of the things that were submitted with the request for proposals. These are the areas that are going to be enhanced with this landscape project. And the first one is 6th and Perkins, and this is kind of a perspective. There's going to be flowers around the monument and some plantings around the monument that currently aren't there that will help kind of bring that out as people are coming through that intersection, the busiest that we have in town. This is 6th and Lowry, which is it's just right up the street from City Hall here at the intersection of 6th and Lowry on the north side of the street. And one of the unique things that they've added here that you'll see a little more of is a silhouette. This will be cut out of metal, and this is meant to mirror the artwork that is on the monument at 6th and Perkins. So this will kind of bring some of that throughout town. This would be 6th and Washington, kind of at the entrance to the strip. Another silhouette there. This would be Washington and Boomer. The traffic islands there don't have access to water. So what they've done is create more silhouettes where we don't have to worry about water. And this will just kind of bring that theme throughout town. And this is something that if we decide to go further with this as we go forward, this could be kind of spread out throughout town in various high visibility areas. Then Wittenberg Park's entrance. There'll be landscaping at both ends along 177. This is one end, and then this would be the other. Anyway, we recommend that this be approved, and we move forward with it.
Just one question on your third item. I'd like to, not tonight, but I'd like to have some conversations with you as OSU probably would want to partner with you on that one.
Okay.
We had some ideas for that space too.
Okay. I think it'd be great.
Is there a reason we're taking this out of the convention tourism budget? It just seems kind of weird to me. I mean, I understand. I guess I understand a little bit, but it's hard for me to see a.
I had the same question.
I don't know. I don't mind what you want to do, but I think it. I just don't think this is the right fund to get it from, in my opinion.
Going back to the presentation that Mr. Galloway made when this was originally brought up, it's to enhance the appearance of the community for visitors. It'll also do it for the residents, of course, but it's not something that's unusual for tourism-type funds to pay for.
Is it Did the money come from the hotel and motel tax?
Yes.
You said it's not unusual for.
And Mr. Galloway might be able
Yeah, well, this was something that was discussed a little earlier, several months ago with council, and Mayor may recall as well, is that the hotel tax primarily is for destination marketing. We contract with Red Dirt DO for that purpose. It also allows for the development of anything that promotes and enhances attractiveness to the community for visitors and tourism. And it's fairly common for municipalities to use a portion of that for that. Now, the CETA budget, you have funds, unappropriated funds from a couple of sources. The use tax is a part of CETA's reserves, as are the unencumbered portions of the hotel motel tax. And we looked at this project, and as opposed to an economic development project for an economic project that you might want to use use tax for, this one seemed to align more closely with the visitor and tourism component, and that's why we suggested appropriating it from the hotel tax. Now, if that's not, if you don't feel that that does fit that, we would recommend appropriation from your reserves from the use tax portion, but again, we felt that it seemed to fit the tourism portion more accurately than your general economic funds.
I mean, I think I just have two problems. I mean, my first problem is that, not to jump agenda here, but, down 2 items, we're going to talk about a humongous project downtown, and we're taking money out of something what we could maybe use for some stuff down there that we want to do on flowers and statues. My other problem is that I feel like if we maybe reached out to the community, some community members may want to get involved with some of those things. There's gardening groups, there's civic clubs, I don't want to buy a horse statue, but someone may and want to put dedicated by John McClenney and Associates. I just gave you Associates, so, but I don't know. It just kind of, I don't know.
Well, if we're going to award this bid as it is, we have to have a funding source of some sort. We won't be able to proceed with it with garden clubs and things like that. So it's like Mr. Galloway said, it can come from wherever we want it to come from, but to award this bid, it needs to.
Perhaps you can get clubs to adopt the parks after they're built out to maintain them going forward.
I think there's also the idea of starting something with the city doing it, and we've used this word a number of other times, catalyst, we have hundreds of places that we could enhance in the city. And if we start with a visual, concrete, or metal expectation, it kind of gets the idea rolling a little bit more. I think of it as a catalyst.
This grew out of visioning sessions that the council had, particularly the one that we had on economic development, and it was discussed about the attractiveness of our city for all kinds of economic development purposes, but for tourism. And this grew out of that visioning session and a couple of others where beautification of the entryways were considered as a major priority of the council.
Mr. Mayor, regardless of the funding source, that's a small part of this to me. I'll tell you that we hear it all the time on the campus that, believe it or not, one of the reasons why some students choose OSU is because how beautiful it is. Mm-hmm. And we go to great pains to make every corner look as nice as we can make them. We think I think this kind of activity helps the university recruit students. They usually don't say Stillwater is beautiful and that's what attracted me. They say the campus is beautiful. I'd love them to say Stillwater is beautiful. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm right.
I think without a doubt, the consensus of it, project-wise, I think you're getting a bunch of thumbs up. I think there were some questions raised on the proper funding source. I think this is spot on right, smack dab in the middle of what is proper for the hotel tax to be used for. It's restricted to things that promote or enhance tourism or visitors, and the beautification of Stillwater enhances that. So from a legal, moral, or any other type of standpoint, I think it's right in the wheelhouse of that. As we put together the budget, as we made the plans for this year within CEDA and with tourism and visitors, the budget was half for marketing, half for other things. To me, this is a great step one towards other things. And I love the idea of opening it up into the adopt a park, adopt a tree for a donation standpoint to help enhance it. To rely upon other groups to actually do the labor for it, I think we're probably playing with fire. Anyone that's ever been as part of a homeowner association can agree to that. But the opening it up and having others participate, I think is a wonderful idea, and I do believe will spark the expand this to other areas. But I think it's a great first step in beautification.
And it is definitely meant to be the beginning, to show what can be done and kind of get those ideas rolling.
Sorry. Do other cities in Oklahoma use funding this way? Hotel, motel for beautification, things like that for?
I have not checked. I would have to.
I know there are plenty. I mean, Norman uses almost half of their hotel tax to repay golf course redesign, and I think it's a butterfly, not museum, but enhancement preservation area.
And how much of this is the budget? Can anyone tell me off the top of their head?
Oh, it's
Do your math.
less than, well, of the $500,000 that's in the budget from hotel tax, this would be the 54,000. So it's.
Well, the projected budget of over $1 million for hotel tax.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
This will be an annual thing we'll want to do, correct?
Yes.
Well, not the whole thing. I mean,
The
ongoing maintenance or improvements.
In fact, the maintenance portion of that is $9,896 a year, so it is significantly less once it's installed.
And this could be expanded to other visible
Yes.
places in Stillwater.
Just kind of had to take a small piece of it to start with.
Should be step one.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. McClenny?
No, thank you for.
Would you repeat staff's recommendation again?
Staff's recommendation is to award the bid to Cross Timbers Landscape LLC in the amount of $54,071 and approve the budget amendment to take the funding from Convention and Tourism Fund.
Got it.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve staff recommendation. And that is approved 4-1 with Councilor Nahara voting no. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. McClenny. Okay. Item 2 on CEDA's agenda is discussion of working timetable plan. You guys know what it is. It's the overall discussion we've been having and proceeding forward with it in connection with downtown. One thing we did at our last meeting, a request was made to Mr. Galloway in connection with a proposed time frame or timetable on how to proceed. And so, Mr. Galloway, we'll start with that, and then we'll go into discussion.
This has been a little difficult. It's hard to put together a timetable when we don't have all the components defined. But as we discussed, as you all discussed at the last meeting, you asked that some of the questions you were discussing that night be sent to all the council, and you all had an opportunity to respond. And I got a tremendous amount of response from all of you, and we've really taken a look at those. And those responses, I think, really helped clarify what kind of information you were still looking for, some of the issues that aren't yet resolved, some of the clarifications that have been asked for. And so I tried to assemble those into kind of a summary of topics that would work inside of a time frame. And I've got a list here. I don't know if there's a need to go through the list, but I think there were a lot of questions that we got a lot of opinions about, but we don't have facts on. The questions about the conference center, whether, is there a need for a conference center in Stillwater or not? Is there a need for it downtown or not? Again, we had a study conducted several years ago. There's questions of, is it still current? There's opinions of some say it is, some say it isn't, but we have no empirical data as yet to tell us whether or not that is current. So there's location questions, there's market questions on that issue, and I think it's making it difficult to answer that kind of a question, whether you have it or not, or whether you have a downtown or not, if those kind of things are still not updated to everybody's confidence level. Same thing with a downtown hotel. It becomes an issue whether it's freestanding or whether it's in combination with a conference center. If it's a freestanding hotel, then the question arises, is there an additional market demand for hotel rooms in Stillwater, just pure hotel rooms? And I don't think we've looked at that. And the question then, if there is a demand for more hotel rooms, is the demand downtown? And I don't think we've done any kind of an evaluation of that information. Retail, offices, and residential, we have some anecdotal information, and we have assumed that there's a market for it. There's questions about that market. I think we need to probably look, what is the retail demand? What is the residential demand? What is the office demand? And I think there's a couple of key questions that have kind of come up through this that I can't answer. For example, if there is a residential demand, is it going to relocate residents in our community, or is it truly a residential demand of people coming to our community to fill new residential? I don't know the difference in that. Development focus, and there's been some discussion on private and public, and this being a public-private partnership. And I think a lot of questions have arisen as to the extent of that public-private relationship and the proportions of the project that would be private and the proportions that would be public. I don't know that anyone has arrived at that answer as yet, and I think it's been a little bit complicated because we have two different proposals for one thing, but I think the response to the proposals, we're finding that the other businesses in our downtown, the property owners in downtown, the community in general, specific interest groups in our community are beginning to express support and concerns for various parts of it, and I think it's made it extremely difficult to answer that question at this point. What is the appropriate balance between public facilities and private facilities on a limited resource of a public asset of those two blocks? Again, I don't have the answer. I'm just saying these are questions that appear to be on people's minds that we need to answer. Again, the public expectations and public needs, the public wants, if you will, and there was a lot of discussion last time about we need to know what the public wants. We need to know what the bid district wants. We need to know what a lot of stakeholders in our community want. And I think there's several different sectors of stakeholders. I think business developers and business investors are one group of stakeholders that we have locally. I think our citizens are another group of stakeholders of what they would like their downtown to be and what they would like to have downtown. You also have the downtown surrounding property owners who are going to be impacted by this, and I think that's another group of stakeholders. I really think that we don't know what all of those stakeholder groups see as the ideal kind of a development for our central part of our city on these blocks. And I don't know that anyone can say, oh yes, they all agree on this or they all disagree on this. There are a lot of components. We have not taken the time to sort those stakeholder groups' interest and put them together. And that's making it difficult to answer some of the questions. There's also significant questions about infrastructure that we can't answer at this point, depending on the nature of the project. For example, if this were so simple as to say, well, let's just develop the entire block into a park with a splash pad and farmer's market, as the Puma plan contemplated at one point. The demands for additional water and sewer and electric for that project would be minimal. Infrastructure cost would be minimal. If we develop it very intensely with a conference center and a major hotel and some apartments, we're going to have a significant increased demand on infrastructure. We can't tell you very accurately the ballpark at this point of the infrastructure cost until we reach some agreement as to the makeup of the project demands. If we know what's going to be there, we can assess the demands. Our staff has looked at this and said if it's fully intensely developed with everything that was originally in there, the combined for water, sewer, and drainage could be in the neighborhood of $5 or $6 million for those infrastructure requirements. If it's that high, then those are things we're going to have to look at the project to see if the project will generate funds that will pay those. And those are questions we can't answer. So in looking at all those, then I tried to think, okay, what's a time frame to answer all those questions? And so I identified what I think are some categories of information that you may, at least these questions and this information that I heard, points me this to say we need a public outreach component of our time frame to make sure we've heard from the citizens, we've heard from local investors, we've heard from local developers, we've heard from bid district property owners, we've heard from all those local interests to see what the perceptions and wants and needs and desires are. We have a component regarding the hotel. We need to have some, I believe, professional empirical data that says, yes, you have a demand for additional rooms, you have an additional demand for this many rooms in Stillwater, they will work well downtown or they won't. Otherwise, we may be making a decision based on everybody's good guess, and I don't know that you want to do that. Urban design, I put down urban design as a category here because urban design goes back to some things that I've heard the mayor last week, some others talk about. Do you create a design where the public's invested component becomes the focal point that attracts investment, or do you develop a urban design where a commercial investor, private investor, creates a nucleus around which the public would try to build some amenities, or is it somewhere in between? And I think there's some fantastic resources available to people in the urban design business that could help take what we gather from the community outreach process, what we take from the market studies, and then work with the council, with the interested stakeholders, and say, here are some designs that could accommodate all of those needs and markets that you identify. That would be a way to do that. The same holds true for, what I think there's interest in having a permanent farmers market. I think we need to take a look at what the projections are for that farmers market, in essence, in terms of how much resources of that block can reasonably be dedicated to that purpose and have some kind of an assurance that that use will command that property use and will not let it sit there vacant or unproductive. I think we also need to make sure that we're talking about food trucks in the project, and I think that's a great idea to include them. Again, we need to, I think, look at some of that market, and see if it's a permanent growing market and what allocation of the project should accommodate that. And until we know what these markets are for each of the components, until we know what the public's image is collectively among the various stakeholders, to try to reach a decision of all these answers, I think will be difficult. I also think when the public input, I'm only going to speak for myself, I think most of us have gotten so involved in this project and so passionate about it. I think we've all have some really what we think individually are some pretty clear ideas. And I haven't seen all the comments that were sent back to the council, but I read most of them that I was copied on. And I see the same thing. There's some very passionate belief as this is the component we got to have. Another group is this one. Now, my question is, if we're going to do a community outreach program and work with all the stakeholders, my personal belief is we need somebody who is 100% independent and objective and has no dog in the fight. I think city staff is perceived by some to have a bent on this project. So I don't think city staff conducting the public charrettes or the public outreach program is going to be generally accepted by the whole world to say, hey, that's very objective and no opinion. I think the same thing is true if we have any of the interest groups in our community in the projects lead that. I would really highly recommend we find somebody who is independent, professional, understands urban issues, and can conduct charrettes, for lack of that's another term. That's the quickest format. You could probably do a public input of all stakeholders, and by the time you find somebody and employ them and get it set up, it's probably going to take 30 to 45 days. I think if you don't have that professional charrette-based type of interaction, it could take 60 days or more to get those stakeholders involved. I think that's an initial first step. I think with that input from the stakeholders in our community, the council can then begin to look at those components that you believe and the public believes are the key viable parts to the project. At that point, you make decisions. Do we need market analysis? If everybody says we don't need a hotel down there, nobody wants one, the council doesn't want one, why spend any money updating that market study right now? If you do come back that there's a general consensus we need a hotel, let's confirm that there's a market for it and make sure we're doing good business before we just decide to build one. And that would hold true, I think, for each component of the project. Let's see what the general consensus of our investors, our business community, and our public are, and then try to filter that and say, okay, wow, we've got a concept that has 8 potential components. It's only going to take 3 or 4 of them. We need to narrow it down. And at that point, I think we need to find some not long, extensive plans. I don't mean that. But I think if there's questions about the economic viability of some business component of the project, maybe we go to the Spear School of Business and the professors there could offer some kind of an analysis based on their access to economic data. Or maybe we find a consultant to do a very quick analysis of one single type of business market. And when you put all those together, hopefully everybody in this room and beyond would have all the information to say, let's sort it out and move forward. This is not a delay, it's just an organized process to make sure everybody and everything is considered. How long is that going to take? I don't know. As I said, I think you'd be flying to do the public outreach part in 30 to 45 days right now. When you get that, I think you need to look at your other studies. I think this could take anywhere from 2 months to 10 months, depending on what each step leads you to. And this is, I think we learned, we got some great proposals, but I think none of the proposals, in my opinion, really truly met all of the concepts of the RFP. If it did, it would have been a proposal where everybody in the room said, that's it. We got it. It covers every single thing we want, and let's go. No discredit to any of the proposals. But since it doesn't do that, and we've had all these other questions, this is a possible time schedule to look at that. Now, I know that in presenting this, it sounds like I'm being kind of recommending of the time schedule. And it's the council, whatever you feel the trustees are comfortable with at this point. You've had a lot of input, a lot of questions. This is one way to go about getting them. But I don't think it's something you can, if you want this kind of information, want these kind of answers, and you want to make sure, I had one of our council members make a statement when we started in this project. The main thing is we have to reach a point where everybody around the table equally accepts and is willing to support the common vision. And that's what I want to get to. And I don't think we have enough information on the table to do that. and I think this is the way to go about getting it. That's my report on the schedule.
I think our discussion that we're getting ready to have is going to kind of pop back and forth between items B and C, so let's not get real technical on the B and C items on the agenda since they're very, very similar. So, all right, discussion.
Yeah. So Dan, I want to apologize up front because I'm going to pretty much go against quite a bit of what you just said. What I would like to do is propose a little bit of a plan and a little bit of an action. I've thought a lot of this since last week when I kind of made my point, and I think I've kind of come to a little bit of a middle ground. What I would like to do is file a letter of intent with Block 34 Group, not a commitment, but I would like to sit down with them, and I haven't sat down with them since we all saw them, so I don't know where they stand on this. So when I'm saying this, I'm saying we're going to have to go talk to them. But what I'd like to do is file a letter of intent with Block 34. They would be alongside of us through some of this planning. I don't want to take 10 months. I know you're just throwing those numbers out there, but I'd like to have more of maybe a 2 to 3.5 month phase of planning, making sure the community wants the things we're going to put down there. One of my other opinions, and this may get some eyes raised, but I'd like to recommend Mayor Bartley, when he steps off the council as a chairperson, to head up our committee for the downtown development. Yeah, your eyes is even raising. I just think it'd be a smooth transition. I think that he won't be on the...
I was going to learn to play the guitar when we got down here, didn't I?
This is just my rough idea. I've written all this down, so I just wanted to put it out there for people to think about. My opinion on that would be that he could easily transition, and he's seen a lot of the public comments, so he can help us to guide us, and it doesn't take up a lot of our time because I think this project is going to be very time consuming, and you're going to have a little bit of a time after Tuesday. So, but I would like to, basically my vision would be for them to come alongside us, plan with us, talk to the citizens, talk to the groups that are involved, the chamber, CVB, the school board, civic groups, citizens that are concerned about it, bid district. They meet with them, they talk with them, we get a plan, just like Dan is saying, to make sure we're doing everything right. And then when we get to the end of it, we say, do you want to be involved in this? And they can say yes or no. But that way we know we have someone there with us, and halfway through it, they may say, we don't want to be involved in this anymore, we're out. We haven't lost anything, we've still got a plan moving forward, and we just have to go find someone else to do it. That's my recommendation, is to plan with a group and act a little bit down the road. My opinion and the feedback I've had throughout the week is don't let this drag out. I understand we need more planning. I don't think anyone said break ground tomorrow. Most people are in a consensus. We do need a little more planning. We need to figure out what 100% needs to go down there. But I would say no more than 3 to 3.5 months to make sure we know exactly what's there, and then we can start drawing up the actual square foot. And so that's my recommendation. That's just kind of where I'm at. I'll let it go on you guys.
We're going to go down the line?
Whoever wants to speak next.
Go down the line.
Speak.
All right, I've got to fix the microphone. I know.
You need some tape up here for this.
Take it
Okay.
out of your paycheck. You broke it.
I just have to start by saying, because I think this is the elephant in the room, if we didn't have these answers before, why did we reach out? I think we have heard from citizens through email. I don't think that we've heard from the public sector as much as we've heard from downtown and business people. Overwhelmingly, they want to move forward. Dan, what you said about looking at urban or housing and to see if it matters if residences switch or if they move in here, I don't think that matters. I like to have a choice, and I think Stillwater needs more choices. I think we should do more outreach, citizen outreach, especially public sector. But I also think that Block 34 should be involved in that. I like what you're saying about the letter of intent. And we haven't mentioned the community center, so I'll save my comments.
Real quick, when you said reach out more, especially in the public sector, what do you mean by that?
I mean, just private citizens. What do they want? Because I really think that this is important.
General
Just-
public.
Yeah, I don't ever like to use that term, general public, because I don't think there is one. I teach that. There's lots of segments out there. We've heard from a lot of business people. And a few just private citizens who know what they want downtown, but I think that's the area that we need more input from.
I'll tell you what, bringing up, or do you want to still go down the road? When you bring up we've heard from business people, I'll tell you what, the common thread that I got was anyone that had any experience in development or finance, much less at this level, the collective answer was you don't have enough information to make a decision on what to build. That carried a lot of weight with me. I think it goes into there's a big difference between what do you want as opposed to what is the smart thing to build. To haul off and just act, to just build something for the sake of building, as some have suggested, I think is foolish. We've got to know the right thing, the right type to build, as well as the extent of it, meaning how many of a certain thing, what proportions between public and private. But just to haul off and act and start with blueprints right now, that is too far ahead. I've been asked several times, why do you have the cart ahead of the horse kind of a comment? And my response has been, this is not a normal city project. And we may have asked some questions ahead of when they have been asked before, but I also don't think that we would have gotten the public input and the conversation going this direction in a positive manner if all we had done was, without the public conversation, come up with 80% of a plan, or here are some really solid guidelines. It'd be a completely different conversation we're having. So I don't think we've got the cart ahead of the horse. This is a different way than it's been done. This is not buying a garbage truck. And so we're handling it differently. It was brought up, the school system was brought up in presentations and it was brought up tonight. I've been involved for 5 years with the school on the community center. And the comment's always been, yeah, we'd love to be in the community center. And my comment has been, I'd love for you to be off that block on Main Street. The city owns that block, and to have the school administration not utilizing that block opens up a lot of opportunities. And the question is always rolled back to money. And so having some more in-depth conversation with the school for the repurpose of that part of the building, I think is a very important conversation to have. At the same time, if it's just something that the schools would love to do, but it's not ever feasible, at some point, a decision is going to have to get made to not just hold up. But the conversation ought to be happening. Last week I threw out an idea, and it didn't go over great. I'm going to throw out another one just to, if for no other reason, to kind of prove we don't have the consensus. And I'd throw out an idea of, let's take that west portion of the community center. So not the Winfrey Easton Theater, but the remainder of it, and let's figure out a way to renovate that into private type endeavors. If the schools can't use it, let's renovate that into private type endeavors. And while that's going on, and long before it'd ever be done, we can be doing the planning for the rest of the block. It's within the footprint that's already a constraint, a physical constraint on the property. And instead of just going out and plopping something else down that we've got to work around as we figure out what's best, we're working within what's already the constraints. I mean, there was a great ideas thrown around about, updating the Winfrey Houston Theater, enhancing it, and breaking out the back wall going east and creating an outdoor performance space, and they share that backstage area. Those are wonderful ideas. So, I mean, it's one of those, we need someone that has planning experience, that has planning expertise, to know how to ask the questions to help us get to that answer. And notice the word I use, help us get to the right answer, not tell us what the right answer is. And by the us, that's a collective community us. So I firmly believe we need someone with planning experience to guide us through that process. I don't know if Block 34 has that experience or not. I don't know if that's what you were meaning or not. I don't know, but that can definitely be part of the conversation.
Well, I don't know that I can add much to this conversation. I will say that I'm leaning towards agreeing with Gina in that, and it doesn't do a lot of good to say we might have got ahead of ourselves. I'm not sure I agree with you on that point. I think information's needed. I think a conference center downtown might be a great thing. It might not. And I think we would benefit from having some information. That's why I like the idea of an urban planner or an architect, someone like Don Beck and Associates, somebody like Rand Elliott, these guys have designed spectacular venues and to lead us through a planning exercise. I think that would, someone whose work is done when they've done the design charrettes and talked with the community, and we then have a plan that we then move forward and put out bids for specific pieces of it. The public, the city might do some of it, private developers might do some of it, but I really don't want to see us turn those blocks over to a private developer unless this is going to be a spectacular addition to the city. Why would we just give it away for what we, for something that's just ordinary? I want it to be spectacular. I want it to be a draw to downtown and secure downtown's place in our future. So I'm still back on the architect or urban planning to help guide us.
I hear what you're saying.
And it might include everything you said about the community center.
Right,
We might find out from study that building is so old and has issues that we might not want to see the money spent in there. But we might find that it's a great facility that we can still get some good use out of.
Yeah. Well, and I realize that the plans that were submitted were not final. Were not my real question is the proportion of uses, the private versus the public. I keep using the word endeavor because I don't know a better word for it.
You already had your turn. It's Pat's turn.
Can I have a couple more minutes?
You'll take them whether you want.
That proportion of it is my question. I feel very confident, and in the responses I gave back to Mr. Galloway, I kind of went beyond those responses, and at least 2, if not 3 of my responses, I hammered on that any type of structure that's built, regardless of what structure it is, we have to use the concepts of form-based codes in them, meaning that it's got to look and feel like downtown Stillwater. Now, I don't mean the exact thing that downtown Stillwater is now, but I do mean complementary. I mean, easy word for it. Brick is a very common exterior material in downtown to flow and work with that. I think the absolute worst thing we could do is, whatever kind of structure it is you pick up that cookie cutter and drop it down. The last thing we need is a hotel that is built somewhere else in the exact same design and the exact same materials, drop down in downtown, even if a hotel's needed. The look and the feel, the city's gonna have to make sure that I don't know if the word control is the right answer, but that concept is so heavy as part of the early planning and the final planning, that is such a critical issue that it needs to be out there right now, underlined 3 times.
And thank you. I think that what you just said, John, kind of goes to exactly what I'm saying. When we invited the presentations and when we were given the instructions for listening to the presentations, we were told, we agreed that we were not listening or looking for a specific design. Right. That everything was conceptual, and that what we were listening for in the presentations was someone with whom we could work. I think we knew at that time that we didn't know specifically exactly what we wanted, nor did we know all of the questions we needed to ask. And as every day unfolds, of course, there are more questions that we learn that we have to ask. And I think, at first there's kind of some discomfort with disagreement. There's nothing wrong with disagreement. There's nothing wrong with different ideas. It just means that we haven't come up with the best idea yet. I'm not a proponent, actually personally, I am a proponent of just go storming ahead. But as a city councilor, I have a little bit of more constraint, a tiny bit. I think that this is an important project. I would like for us to be able to be really excited, jumping up and down, and it would just almost sell itself by our enthusiasm. In the presentations, I liked some things in both presentations, and I did think that I would be able to have more of a conversation with Block 34, an easier conversation. I also like the idea of thinking about this as a piece of a larger picture of Stillwater, and I think that it would be very helpful to have an independent person who could help us converse with Block 34, just for to lay that right out. It is huge work, and we need, I think an urban planner, architect type person, some type of city planner, helping us to focus ourselves. Block 34 persons with their development experience, with their Stillwater experience, and I think they're going to understand brick as opposed to beige stucco quicker than anybody. I like a piece of what everyone has said, and I think that the more we can talk about it, the more we will come to the pieces that we all agree on.
We need to start with planning. I think I agree with everybody in certain aspects that planning and getting ideas down on paper. Now, we've discussed, now let's start the second phase, which is the actual planning.
Let me make sure that my comments aren't being misunderstood. I'm not saying that we need to take Block 34's presentation and start building. What I am saying is that I would like to get a letter of intent with them to move forward for a plan, whether that be what they have, or we say, let's change this, 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 and this. This would be a plan for all of it, the big impact, not just there. So they need to understand that, and that's going to be a conversation, whoever sits down and talks with them. This is about downtown, but also we want to make sure our big picture is flowing with that. I don't want ordinary. I don't think they do ordinary. I know someone said that, and again, that goes back to my point. This is going to be our plan. And when I say our plan, I'm saying Stillwater's plan, not the 5 of us, not the city staff. This is Stillwater's plan. If Stillwater says we want this type of brick, and we want this type of whatever, that's what we're going to go with. So that won't be ordinary. So I think I'm 100% on board with all of you on the planning. I know we need more of it. I just think we would be so missing something if we didn't at least move forward with a group that can plan with us. And like I said, if they don't agree with it, if it doesn't work out, then that's it. And then we have a plan and we can find someone else. So I know probably comments isn't over, but I'd like to make a motion to go to draft a letter of intent to move forward with Block 34. It's my understanding I can make a motion, correct?
You can make the motion. I don't even know if they have been contacted to see if that's something they'd even be interested in.
And that's
So
what
I
I'm
think-
saying.
I think it's rather dangerous to make a motion like that without any conversation whatsoever with that party.
I mean, I think it would be fine. If they say no, then we come back and we've lost nothing.
Can I suggest something real fast?
Can I see if I get a second?
Second.
Okay.
What I was going to suggest was that you withdraw your motion so that we could get a little more consensus on the pieces and the timeline. I think the first step really is, are we in consensus of we need a professional planner? And that be step one. And because if we're not there on the planning side, talking to someone that will help facilitate it, that's out of order. Bad term, I didn't mean that in a procedural, parliamentary procedure manner.
I think that Block 34 demonstrated that they are, whether they end up doing this for us, whether we accept what they have to say after we go through the planning. But I would like to see someone go through the planning with us and work with the planner and hear public comments, and everything is included. It's one big team. It's one big team. I know that Block 34, or I suspect that they went to the Puma plan and looked at it when they did their RFP. So I know, I don't want ordinary either. I know none of us do. And it was described as a wow factor. I want a wow factor within reason. Definitely want wow. And I think that's not what we said in the RFP. We didn't say wow. So I think we need to be more descriptive when we ask someone to present.
So are you suggesting a contract for an amount certain to do planning? Or I'm still not sure what we would be buying.
Am I suggesting a contract to do planning? Well, if the consensus of the council is that we need to hire an urban planner, then my motion, I guess I can amend it, would be let's hire an urban planner to work alongside Block 34 with citizens, chaired by whoever, with a committee, and their timetable, it sounds like, would be somewhere between the 60 to 90 day window, and then we come back and vote on if that's the plan we want to move forward with. I think the consensus is there probably needs to be an urban planner. Last week kind of spoke out against that, and I still am not sold on it. But if my motion will move forward, I mean, I can deal with an urban planner working with our chairperson and our Block 30, or not our block, but Block 34 to determine a plan. I mean, we could talk about an urban planner for forever. So that's my motion, amended.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask a question, since if there were to be a letter of intent, staff might, Mr. Dorman and myself might be involved in helping put that together. At least I just want to offer my interpretation of what a letter of intent could be, and I don't think it's necessarily contradictory to other conversation. A letter of intent might say something like this: it is the intent of the Stillwater Economic Development Authority to proceed with the downtown development project, and we are going to go through a period of assessment of public input, and we're going to employ the services of a professional urban planner to assist us in developing a design, and it is our intent to enter negotiations with Block 34 during that process, as we define that, to discuss a public-private partnership to develop it. So it just lays out our intentions are to take those steps. And if they would sign that would says, we want to participate in that kind of an approach and would be willing to let the city get public input, let the city work with the urban design professionals, and try to collectively identify what Stillwater wants, and at that point, enter the negotiations of a public-private partnership to develop it. And a letter that outlined that process is probably not premature. If you just say it's our letter of intent to do something, you're going to have to outline what your intentions are. And I think the questions I hear the mayor and others asking, the intention is to get more public input, to get professional design help, and conceptually get this project together so we have something we all jump up and down about it, so we can sit down with the developers of Block 34 and say, let's start working out a negotiation of a development agreement on how we do this. Is that, I think that's what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can do that all with a letter of intent.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100% what, I mean, I guess a good analogy would be we're going to take them to prom, and they can help us decide the limo, decide the dress, decide the tux, decide where we go to eat. And the day before, if they don't want to take us, or, you know, we can get out of it, or they can get out of it. If they don't feel like what has happened, that we're not fit to move forward, then it's, I mean, it's an intent. I don't think it means 100% that they have to do it or we have to do it. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I know there's two sitting at this table, so you guys are much better at this than I am, but I don't think it would be off base for us to have an intent to go with someone and then let's plan. And then so we have our action and we have our plan.
I'll take one more shot at it. HCW, I wasn't sure. I don't think they had design staff. They referenced a company they would contract with.
Mm-hmm.
Block 34 would have to do the same thing. So why don't we get our own planner who's independent from the process and can help get us some concepts developed that help sell the project? That's all I'm saying.
We are getting our own. Yeah, I wouldn't expect Howard or Block 34 to hire the urban planner. We would hire them. We would choose them. They would work with the citizens and with the group to move forward. And I
would think that anybody that wanted to participate with the designer planner, Mr. Tubner, I mean, Joe Martin, a lot of folks.
Yes, sir. He would be part of the.
So I don't think we should give I'm going to say it, inside track to future development by being in on the ground floor when we don't even know what we want for sure.
And that would be the chance that Block 34 would have to take. If they decided to sign an intent with us to move forward with this project, they would have to take the chance that it may not be what they want. But I think we've seen what they can do.
You were saying something different, though.
Call the question.
I still think we're not doing this in the proper order. If we're not going to say, staff, go develop the RFQ or whatever the right word is for it for the urban planner, if we're not going to officially take that step, I'm not ready to vote to say anyone's got the ability to talk about anything down there. But if we're going to take that step to say we're going to get that planner in, and then if you want to discuss a letter of intent with somebody else, that would, in my opinion, that's the proper time to do that.
You don't think it can be simultaneous?
I think they're two different questions. One's, do we want to get a planner in here to help us get somewhere? And then the other is this letter of intent question with a group that we have no idea if that's really something they want to be a part of or not. If nothing else, we ought to be having those conversations, offline, for lack of a better word, to see if that's even something they want to be a part of. We may be putting them in a position they don't want to be in.
I don't like bringing somebody in and expecting them to work for free. It's not fair to any applicant. If we're going to expect them to give their time and attention to this, we should be paying them. And that's, hiring somebody that this is their job to help us plan and get data is what we need. Unless you want to give a contract to Block 34 to lead all this and let them get a designer in. That makes more sense to me. But I don't think it's fair to ask either applicant to put a lot of free time into something like this without any assurance that they would have work at the other end. They'd be better served to just be a part of the process like anyone else and share their opinions.
It could be their option to say no. They just say no when we present it to them. I didn't realize that group is in the room, but I think they would have got up and left if they wouldn't even consider any of this we're talking about. And I know we can't call upon them, but I'm just saying, to me, when I read this agenda item, it says a plan, it says possible action to authorize. This is my plan, this is my action. No, it's my understanding that we can vote on it, and if it's not agreed upon, we just don't move forward. If I'm off base, I apologize. That's my plan. And it could all go down tomorrow. We could call them and they say, no, we have no interest in that, and then we just go find an urban planner. We're still going to find an urban planner regardless with my motion. My motion is to find an urban planner, see if they want to sign a letter of intent, or Block 34 wants to sign a letter of intent, and we start working with citizens. I would say they're three separate things.
I would say, someone said it's not fair to make them participate. I think Joe.
No, it's not fair to expect them to give their services away.
Right. Okay, well, I think okay, I agree. They've already put their services in the ring. Maybe it wasn't exactly what we described. When we described, we didn't know we needed planning and the things that we know from hearing from people now. I think that the community input made us all realize we need more input. Their hat's already in the ring. So many people have spoke up saying they wanted local. I want them at least to have first right of refusal.
Wow.
This was a public question. The RFP was sent out publicly to many places. We had 3 applications. We chose 2 of those applications, and they've already stepped up. Other people had the opportunity earlier to be involved in this. So I like that they were thinking about this project. They've been thinking about this project for longer than we've been thinking about an RFP. And a great deal of thought has gone into their investment in Stillwater. So I have no problem discussing with them. And I also agree, Joe, that it's silly to ask anybody to give 3 or 4 months of hard time for nothing. But that's a discussion that we would have to have with them.
are you anticipating Block 34 playing that urban planner role?
No, sir.
No.
I've said that.
Okay.
Sorry. I'll reiterate that. I don't. The urban planner that we hire is ours, or I shouldn't say ours, is going to help us along the way. We will choose that.
Under contract with the city.
Under contract with the city, yes, sir.
Do you want to make that motion?
Well, I thought it was part of my other motion.
You have added so many things.
No, I have three things in my motion.
The original motion.
And I got a
was
second,
just-
and I never got a
The
call to
original
vote.
motion was one thing, wasn't it?
The original motion, then he moved to amend it, and the amended motion has not been seconded yet, so you could still
Second.
continually amend it because you haven't spoken it yet.
I mean, if I.
Can we
Don't-
make it
don't
simple?
ask.
Let's make it,
Okay.
can we make it simple?
Let me suggest this, since we're absolutely confused on, well, the rest of us are. Well, let me phrase it, I am. Putting multiple things into the motion
Okay.
is extremely dangerous.
So do I need to retract my
A
motion? and
compound
separate-
motion is dangerous.
Please.
Okay, so I need to retract my motion and separate them.
That would make it simpler. What
Okay.
has happened is that you had a motion and then you amended it, but she did not second your amendment, so your amended motion
Yeah.
essentially died. So you're back down to your original motion at this point. So if you want to withdraw that, you could do that.
Okay, so I'll withdraw my motion. And my amended motion, even though it wasn't seconded. Okay, and so I'm gonna make a new motion.
Second. We'll show that in the record.
I was following along the whole time. Okay.
All right, we're back to square zero.
Nothing's there now.
Okay. Compound motions are dangerous.
Okay.
I think us reaching some sort of consensus on some form of the city hiring urban planner is critical step one.
Okay.
If there is any desire to make a motion to that effect, I think that would be the proper motion. Or you tell me what words you want to hear to get to where we want to go.
You're on?
I will make a motion for the city of Stillwater to hire a urban planner.
Second.
Wait, before you second it, not the city, the CETA.
CETA, I'm sorry,
and
yeah, CETA.
We're talking contractually, not employee.
Right.
Is that what you mean by that?
Yes, sir.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on that. CETA contractually hire urban planner. Do you have the information you would need?
I would like that qualified to say, to
Put out an RFP?
put out an RFQ.
Q.
A request for qualifications. We publish it very quickly as we can. Get urban design firms to submit their qualifications. You look at those and then make a motion to hire one.
Gotcha.
That's the
Does that make
process.
sense?
So I
Does to me.
interpret that's the process from your motion.
Sure.
All right.
That is your motion?
Sure.
Sure on the second.
Was that your second? All right. RFQ, head towards urban planner.
Are you,
That is approved 5-0.
I feel another motion coming on.
is it my turn for another motion?
Well, you're driving.
I would like to make a motion to sign or to move into or create a letter of intent to move forward with Block 34 for our downtown development proposals.
Second.
Would it be better?
Well, can I ask a question? When you say work with them, are you talking about enter into negotiations with? Are you talking about, are you awarding them something?
No. I'm seeing if, it's my understanding that a letter of intent is to say, the city of Stillwater is going to move forward with an urban planner. We are also going to create a community group with business leaders, blah, blah, blah. We would like for you to work alongside us to see these plans, to help us grow these plans, and at the end of this process, if you would like to move forward with this plan, we would like you to be the developer in it.
how would it
That is
make-
our intention. It's not
to discuss with them? We have no idea if they want that or not.
Correct.
So us to say we shall enter would not be smart.
okay. So
Discussions with is something we could do, correct?
Right, you could negotiate with them for that.
Okay,
but
perfect.
But you don't want to expressly award something to them by your motion.
okay.
Is a letter of intent awarding something
It's not awarding something, it's kind of an agreement
to discuss?
or just an agreement to agree on a later day. It's just kind of what you make it, but it's not necessarily a binding thing unless you specifically award something to someone, and you want to stay away from that.
It's my understanding. I have not said that at all tonight.
No.
Discuss.
Discuss, negotiate, those kind of words you can do all night long.
Okay.
Now, you do realize that at the end of the design and architectural study, I would expect any number of developers, contractors wanting to come to the table and be a part of the process. But you're wanting to make it exclusive. I mean, I heard first right of refusal twice. I think we're sending the public mixed signals.
We already started this process.
But, well, I can just go by my own experience, and at the university, we take proposals for architects, construction managers every month. 20 people apply. We see all sorts of fancy proposals. We accept one. And the others, they appreciate being considered, but a lot of people get no letters. I mean, that's just part of it. I think we decided we didn't like either plan that we saw in total, and we need to get more data, and we need to get some more planning concepts on the table. But if you guys saw something and you want to move forward with them, make the motion.
It wasn't the plan. I mean, I was not looking at either plan for specific things that I liked or did not like. I was listening to how these people worked, how they spoke, how they knew Stillwater. I called numerous other cities to get references, and that's what I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And so it has nothing to do with what was drawn on a piece of paper. And
I agree
felt-
with that.
I mean, I think it is, I don't know how to incentivize a person to work with us for this planning period in a way that makes it worthwhile to them business-wise. Hopefully it would work.
And they say no, and we have an urban planner motion. I mean, we lose
We're
nothing
still-
with this motion. If they say no, I think we're getting too wrapped up in if they say no. If they say no, they say no. But my opinion is that we should, I think we should give them the shot. And if they say no, they say no, and then that's it. We have an urban planner coming up, and we have a committee coming up, and
And we may say no later.
The motion was to enter into a letter of intent with the Block 34 group to negotiate them, their involvement in this project.
That right there, the uhs and the pauses
It's difficult to
prove,
articulate.
in my opinion, what I'm getting ready to say. I think the proper motion is authorize staff to discuss with Block 34 the possibility of a letter of intent. Because us voting, hey, give a letter of intent, I don't have any clue what the concept or the constructs or the parameters of that are right now. I view that almost as that when we changed it back to RFQ instead of hire a planner. To have those discussions with that specific goal as opposed to staff go do it. We don't know what the parameters of that are, much less interest on the other side.
I'm afraid if we don't, it might not be the right place to put it in the motion, but I do think we need to articulate what our intention is before we just say, staff, go talk to Block 34, because we'll end up with who knows what. I mean, staff needs to know what our intention is.
What is it?
Our intention is to discuss their partnership with us as we go through these months of planning, these months of public input, charrettes, if we like fancy words, working with the professional urban planner, and all of the stakeholders, all of the connected parties in Stillwater, the school board, OSU, business owners, BID, whomever knows and loves Stillwater and wants us to have a fabulous project downtown.
Let me ask this, and maybe it's my understanding the motion was going to go, so I just made the motion. I'm get motion happy. But let me ask this: what if I want a motion before we leave on this to have a discussion? So let me ask this question: if I make a motion of myself and Councilor Darlington and the city attorney in discussions with this group to figure out a letter to come to agreeable terms and to bring a letter back for the next CETA, could something like that happen? That way we get this all worked out. We could talk to council. We could talk to you. I would prefer that it is the council and the attorney that negotiates this. And we determine that. We bring it back to council. And if council accepts that intent, that discussion, whatever you call it, I don't care, then we vote on that the next CETA meeting. Could we do that? That way we understand it fully. We've got it. You're working with us. You make sure we don't get thrown in jail. And again, we come back to CETA, and if they said, we come back and say, hey, they said no. We've lost nothing, and we've started on the urban planner.
Because the RFQ will still go forward tonight,
Yeah, it's
right?
separate.
That motion's there. So are you withdrawing your prior motion?
Man, I don't want to, but yes, I will.
Or you could amend your prior motion since you haven't.
Amended.
I'm looking like an idiot up here. I've got to be honest. This is very frustrating. I would like to do this. I don't care how it's worded. I don't mean to be rude, but I just want it worded how I just said. If we go back and look at it and just write down what I just said, I don't remember exactly what I just said, but there's been a second, and I think we can vote on it. I think it's going to go forward, so I think we're wasting a lot of time. The thing is Councilor Darlington and I and you find a time to meet with Block 34 to create a discussion letter of moving forward with this project.
And to bring it back to this board
Council
for review.
for acceptance, and if they don't agree, then it fails, and nothing has been lost on
At the next
urban
CETA
planning.
meeting. At
Yes.
the next CETA meeting. When is the next CETA meeting?
Scheduled meeting is
20th?
2 weeks.
We haven't wasted time because the initial motion was something that couldn't be accomplished. The conversation led us to, I'm assuming that was an amended motion to
Yes.
create this little subcommittee and go forth and prosper, to come back to the rest of the trustees. Is that a fair of where we're at on the motion, and was that amendment seconded?
Second.
It is now.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion on the motion as amended?
Oh, I'm just going to say that I still think it's vague and a little ambiguous, and we don't have any idea what is coming back to us, but the question should be called, and we should all vote.
And the specifics will get dealt with at the next CETA meeting.
I think we have moved forward a little bit tonight, and that's what everybody wanted us to do.
Okay, there's an amended motion that's been seconded and plenty of discussion. We're ready to vote. And that it's approved 4-1 with Trustee Weaver voting no. Turn my iPad off, so hang on. All right. Is there any other conversation or discussion under items B and C that you guys would like to have? If not, is there a motion to adjourn CEDA?
So moved.
Could I amend that?
No. And CEDA is adjourned. Any particular order you want to address the executive sessions?
This, Mr. McGrath here, let's go ahead.
Okay, we will reconvene city council, and Mr. Dorman has given the required notice on the request for executive session. Is there a motion to move into executive session under city council?
So moved to move into city council.
Motion and a second. As approved, 5-0.